Welcome to the Academic Woman Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, tenured full professor, mom of three, and firm believer that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. And it all starts with writing. Let's go.
Do you believe these 5 writing myths? I'm going to break them down for you on today's podcast. So much of our writing practice is about our beliefs about writing. So today I want to break through 5 common writing myths that I hear all the time from the academic women in my community. All right, so let me just guess something about you. Maybe you have a list of almost done projects that you want to complete. Maybe you've got some revise and resubmits, some drafts that need to be hacked out, reviews that you've promised to people. And of course, there's making our way through the end of the pandemic semester and trying to plan out classes for the future. The reality is that chaos always seems to take over. And this is a particularly chaotic time in everyone's lives around the world, and especially in professors' and academics' lives. So it's very easy for writing projects to drop to the bottom of the list within a sea of competing projects. Part of the reason, though, that you have accumulated writing projects is that you are actually holding on to some myths about how to make writing a bigger part of your career. So this podcast is all about breaking down those myths and giving a good dose of reality to everyone. That's going to set you up to get more writing done and really have the best writing summer that you can under the current circumstances. Okay, so let's dig into the 5 myths about getting writing done that you need to stop believing like yesterday. Okay, myth number 1, you need inspiration to write. Now, I used to think this, especially as a grad student, that I needed inspiration to strike, but that thought or that desire, like I could wait around to be inspired to write, went right out the window when I had my first baby. Pre-baby, I thought that the planets needed to be aligned and the time of day needed to be perfect and I needed to be in the right mood to write. But having a child showed me that there was hardly ever going to be a time when I was quote unquote inspired. I was just too exhausted. So I had to figure out another way. So here's the reality. You need a system. The way to bust through this myth that you need an inspiration to write is that you need to get yourself a writing system, something that you can rely on, that you can go back to, a complete set of practices to create a writing system that even if you fall off the writing wagon, that you can get back on again. Of course, that is what I teach inside of my Academic Women's Writing Roadmap program. It is really, really important, whatever system that you use, that you have something systematic, that you break through that myth of needing inspiration or for the planets to align. Okay, myth number 2. You need to work on nights and weekends. Again, after becoming a mom, the option of working nights and weekends was completely gone for me. There was no getting up before the kids either, because as I've talked about on this podcast before, I literally woke up at 4 a.m. every day for years with my second child. He is still an early riser, but now, thankfully, is old enough to early rise by himself and let me sleep. Also, this image of this dedicated scholar burning the midnight oil is, well, just not us. I mean, it's not me anyway. That person is male. He's wearing a tweed jacket with elbow patches. His glasses are falling to the end of his nose. Someone else is watching that imaginary person's kids and making sure that he eats. I'm ready to let go of that ridiculous and very patriarchal standard in academia that says you have to work all the time. Now, this is a particularly dangerous myth right now in the time of the pandemic because some people have this idea that because you are home and you're not driving to campus or getting yourself to campus to work and then getting home at the end of the day, that there's even fewer boundaries around your time. And that really, if you thought before that you needed to write on nights and weekends because you had overflow, you might feel right now like things are completely overflowing, that there's no boundaries between your work life and your rest time. So I want to tell you the reality that breaks through myth number 2. And that is that what you actually need is a concrete plan to get your writing done. It's different than a writing system. What I'm talking about here is that you need a semester plan. If you want to corral your work into working hours, whatever working hours they may be, and I'm sure that they've shifted now that everyone's working from home, you need a plan. Okay, so one way that I do this is by stacking my schedule. You have so many moving parts that make up your work as an academic, and you're also home. So you have duties and responsibilities to potentially other people in your home or to yourself to make sure that there are hard boundaries around work and home and the different things that you do. So one way to impose boundaries on something that feels boundless is to use a stacking method for your schedule. So teaching, research, service doesn't really describe the 3 categories that we need, right? But just to show you how stacking works, we'll just take those 3 broad categories. So I don't know about you, but I'm a person who would let lesson planning fill up an entire day if I could. I love making handouts. I love inventing interactive activities and finding the perfect readings. And especially right now, as we had to pivot very quickly from an in-person semester to an online semester, maybe you're spending a lot of time making changes in what you were planning to do so that they can work in an online medium. But even so, and even with the greatest care that we need to give our students right now, you have to draw the line somewhere. So this semester, I'm not teaching actually, but in semesters when I teach, I deliberately force my schedule that's related to anything students onto the same day that I plan my courses. So for example, if I teach Tuesday, Thursday, mid-morning, I force myself to plan the lessons that I'm going to give that day in the block of time I have before class. And that method is called stacking. Okay, so you stack similar things together. On those Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would also do my office hours and have meetings with my graduate students. And that way, it's kind of like smushing all the things that have to do with teaching onto blocks of time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can decide what this is going to look like for you in this pandemic situation, right? So you can decide like, okay, well, how do I draw lines around my time and make sure I have blocks of time for different things? And your ability to do this, I want to let you know that you have more power over your schedule than you probably think. So when you stand up and kind of say like, okay, these are the times that I'm available for meetings, not these other times, and I'm going to say no if the meeting falls in the other times, or this is how I'm going to arrange my schedule into blocks so that I can liberate thought time, right? And deep work time in my schedule. You have power over that. When you stand up and take that power, what you are projecting to the world is that you are important and that your writing is important. And that's really a very important part of finding time to write. Okay, myth number 3. This is my favorite one. Myth number 3 is that you need big blocks of time. So we're kind of in this very strange situation where some of us might now have big blocks of time all of a sudden. It used to be that I would say, like, you think you need big blocks of time, but actually you get a sabbatical, and people freak out even when they have sabbaticals because now they have big blocks of time and they don't know how to structure them. Well, that might be what you're feeling right now. Or you might be on the opposite side, especially if you're someone who has little kids at home, or you're taking care of an aging parent, or taking care of really anyone in your house. You might feel like, wow, I have no blocks of time longer than 30 minutes when a kid comes banging in the door. For example, I have an office, thankfully, at home. So the kids come, asking for food, asking for my phone, asking for something as I'm trying to, for example, record this podcast. And so you either all of a sudden have big blocks of time, but you don't know how to organize them because we're in a global pandemic and nobody knows what to do. Or maybe you have people who you're now living with at home that are interrupting you. And so you really can't get a big block of time. So the thing about needing a big block of time being a myth goes back to this idea of, even if you got a sabbatical, even if all of a sudden, for some of you in my audience, you just have been given big blocks of time and been ordered to stay home, you can't necessarily just automatically figure out how to use big blocks of time for writing. And that's why I always come back to the myth breaker here, the reality, which is that you need to find and use your tiger time. Now, I borrowed the term tiger time from entrepreneur Amy Porterfield, who uses it to describe those high energy, take over the world times of day. I describe how to identify your tiger time in episode 2 of the podcast. So go back and check it out. But the big idea is to schedule shorter blocks of writing time. And I'm talking right now during the pandemic, half an hour to an hour, no more than 2 hours, short blocks of writing time during that tiger time. And not every day. You don't have to do it every day. You'll get more done by being sure to hit those high energy times than by staring at a blinking cursor when you're just too exhausted to think. Now, if you want to know more about Tiger Time and how it works as part of my complete system for getting your writing done and having time to write and managing your publication pipeline, then I teach that inside of my course called the Academic Woman's Writing Roadmap. All right, myth number 4, you're too busy. Okay, you're definitely too busy. So it's not a myth that you're too busy. You definitely have way too much on your plate, and you are almost certainly need to quit things. But it doesn't have to feel all the time like you're pulled in 1,000 directions, even though you might have 1,000 things on your plate. So the reality is that your activities, the things that you do, the committees that you're on, the research you're doing, the courses you're teaching are not aligned. In order to feel less frazzled, you need to make your activities more cohesive. That involves finding focus in your career and aligning all of your activities behind that focus. That's exactly what I show you how to do in the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap course. We have a module that walks you through a activities auditing process with rubrics and an actual step-by-step plan for how to stop feeling pulled in 1,000 directions and align everything behind your academic mission statement. We give you the structure for making decisions and also help you develop a timeline for how to get out of or quit projects. If you can't quit something, we walk you through a process of aligning that thing behind your mission statement. So that's something that if you decide to join us in the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap, you can look forward to figuring out the way to stop feeling like you're pulled in 1,000 directions and actually feel like everything that you're doing is aligned about one mission. All right, myth number 5. You don't have enough time. So for reasons we've already covered today, you feel like you don't have enough time. And I get it. Like, I have felt that too. But then I figured out how to really focus, how to pre-plan, and how to align my activities. The reality is, it's not only about time. So again, anyone who has had the great fortune to be granted a sabbatical can tell you writing more is not just about time. It's about strategy, it's about focus, and it's about planning. I didn't start out my career with those skills in place, though. I learned them through trial and lots of error. But I truly don't think that you should have to learn them that way. So I took all the pieces of the puzzle and created a step-by-step system for going from freaked out to 5-year plan. That's the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap course. And in it, we teach time management, but not just time management. It's just one piece, because focus, planning, and mindset are equally important. When you master all the stops along the roadmap, your semester stops feeling like you're on a runaway train, and you feel like you're in control of your writing and in control of your career. Registration for the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap is opening on May 1st, and we will be open for registration from May 1st until May 8th, 2020. Now, if you want to make sure that you get all the information about the course and how to register, then I want you to hop on over and join the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. And when you join, you're going to be asked 3 questions. And one of the questions asks you to include your email address or answer with your email address so that we can put you on our weekly mailing list. When you join the mailing list, you get a heads up email as soon as each podcast episode is published, and you get emails whenever I go live. So I do a lot of free training live. A lot of that free training is responding to questions that come up in the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. So if you want to make sure that you get access to all of that free content and that you get all the information about registering for the Academic Women's Writing Roadmap, then make sure to put your email address in the group questions when you go to join. Another way that you can get on my email list is to download the 10 Ways to Make Time to Write PDF cheat sheet. And we will link that up in the show notes so that you can go and grab it. And by downloading that cheat sheet, you will be added to our email list and you'll get all the information. Now, coming up really soon is our Summer Writing Challenge, which is a free challenge that starts on April 27th. And we are going to be doing 5 days of getting ready to make this summer, this unusual pandemic summer, actually productive for you. And so you really don't want to miss the Summer Writing Challenge. So again, make sure that you join the I Should Be Writing Facebook group, where we're going to be announcing all of our free trainings and challenges. And if you want to get on our email list, be sure to put your email in the group questions when you ask to join. Or if you aren't that big into Facebook and you just want to get the information about the free trainings, then go ahead and download our 10 Ways to Make Time to Write PDF cheat sheet. And when you do that, you'll get added to our weekly email list and you'll get notifications on all of our free trainings.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable time loving on yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you'd like to continue the conversation, join the over 7,000 academic women in the I Should Be Writing Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/I Should Be Writing or search for I Should Be Writing inside your Facebook app. See you inside.